I keep on hearing, first of all, Angela Merkel would be willing to give some concessions to Brexit, to Britain, to kind of keep them on side. And then I see, well, actually, the European Parliament would never vote for it. Which one is it?
I don't think that the European Parliament or Angela Merkel have really that much say in the negotiating detail.
So who does? Boris Johnson?
It's Barnier, and they've been very clever. I mean, they've been very consistent since the day that Britain voted for Brexit. You know, anybody who comes knocking on the doors in Paris or in Berlin or elsewhere gets pointed back towards Brussels. So I think that's where the action is going to happen, and I think the rhetoric is, for once, probably pretty accurate. The Europeans will not allow a cherry-picking approach. I know that's what the UK wants. I've always wanted it. I mean, the deal that David Cameron had with Europe was essentially a cherry-picking deal out of the existing menu that wasn't palatable to the electorate. So now I think we're going to have to face some hard realities.
So Andreas, it means that you don't see this kind of mirroring, for example, for certain implementations or certain regulation. I mean, we also saw about the Munich Security Conference about some kind of, that the UK wants to remain in conversations over data protection and data security. You think that's a load of nonsense? Well,
I'm not sure it's a load of nonsense. The UK can always opt in to adopt other people's standards. But that's different from having a say in them or being able to co-develop them. I mean, that's always open to any country to adopt the standard, this or that standard, and that's perfectly acceptable. But I think the harsh reality is that unless we want to stay in the customs union or unless we want to be in the single market, both of which have been excluded, you're not left with much else than a Canada-style agreement. And then after that, potentially 2, 3, 4 years down the road, one can then see which policy areas one can seek either equivalence or even adoption of the European standards. But I don't think that the European Union is going to be letting a non-member, co-decide what the standard should be.
So what does that mean?
It's just cloud cuckoo land.
What does it mean for financial services?
It's potentially going to be quite difficult. And
what does that mean?
What it will mean is that I think the reality will be that the UK will grudgingly adopt most of the European standards.
And this will
be a rule taker, essentially.
And this will be
to be able to participate
by people like Boris Johnson?
I think you'll have to accept it, or say goodbye to a very large portion of the financial services sector in the UK.
Does it have implications for your company?
Not if what I'm predicting happens, but if obviously the worst comes to worst, and we are intent of going down a route of sort of regulatory arbitrage, I think the penalties could be very severe indeed.